With the War for Cybertron trilogy winding down with the Kingdom line, I was thinking, what next trilogy could Hasbro and Takara Tomy be working on? Here's my prediction. I'm calling it. I think Hasbro is fast working on the Unicron trilogy. Armada, Energon, and Cybertron. I think with the success of Earthrise and Kingdom and even Siege, on top of the Primor's trilogy, I think it's in the best interest of Hasbro to give us updated and modern versions of the characters we saw in the Unicron trilogy. For this video, we will be focusing on the characters and figures I feel Hasbro should give us, if they do give us an Energon line for a succeeding trilogy for the Generations line. I do have other videos discussing my list of characters for Cybertron and for Armada. Please check out those videos as well. But for this video, we will be focusing on Energon characters and figures. So let's get it on. Let's start things off with some core class figures, or figures I believe should be released in the core class subline. Battle Ravage. I thought this was an interesting figure. It could seriously use an update. I think it would be amazing. Next up is Strong Arm. I did have some of the repaints of this figure in the first Transformers movie, Bayverse movies. I thought it was a great figure. Next up is Skyblast. Also another interesting character with all these weapons and cool looking biorobot jet. Dive Bomb. I never had this figure. I think it's also another one of those great small figures that was in the Energon line. Signal Flare. Yeah, he is kind of corny, but with the right tweaking, I think this could be a very good figure. Of course, we got to get RC. This is one of my favorite small figures from the Energon line. I got the blue version. I never got the pink version. I think it could use a serious update. RC is always a popular figure, and I think it will sell well, especially in the core class subline. It's got a great alt mode, great weapons. I really like this figure. And last for the suggested core class figures is Insecticon. I mean, who doesn't like this figure? A figure I never had. I wanted to get this figure as well, but man, it's an interesting, a very, very nice small figure. All right, so that's it for core class. That's 7 core class figures. Let's move on with my suggestions for the deluxe class line. I've got 12 suggestions for the deluxe class line. Here they are. Starting off with Inferno. I thought this was an amazing character. The proportions were a little bit off, but I thought the alt mode was great. I think this was a nice modern rendition of Inferno, like a Cybertronian Earth mode type hybrid type of Inferno. I thought it was great. Of course, we need Starscream, the one of the more difficult Energon figures to find. I think I did have this figure. I think I had the one with the clear version. I don't know which version that was, but I thought it was pretty good. I mean, during the time. Prowl, yeah, this figure needs an update. I didn't get this figure back in the day. I thought it was pretty corny, but I thought it had a nice concept. An F1 racer. It's sort of like it should have been Mirage, but they called this guy Prowl, so okay. Then Rodomus. Okay, one of the better looking figures. He had this combining mode, which I thought was corny, but he did have a wonderful looking alt mode, so I think he deserves like even a new deluxe class version. Then Snowcat. This is probably one of my favorite Energon figures that I never had. If you're a big fan of G.I. Joe, this is a figure you want to get. And come to think of it, they could probably use this character as like a crossover, like what they did with X-Pands or the Transforming Ecto 1. This could be like a G.I. Joe crossover, Snowcat. I think that would be great. Just modify the colors into black and white, a little bit of gray instead of this magenta. Next up is Demolisher. I think I did have this figure. I remember, I think I bought it loose at some hobby shop. I thought it was a pretty interesting character. I didn't exactly know him at the time. I saw him at one of the consignment cabinets at a particular hobby shop, and I thought it was interesting. I was just slowly rebuilding my Transformers collection back, I think, in 2007. I saw it, I thought it was pretty interesting. Next is Downshift, basically the wheeljack of Energon, and I think this one deserves a redo or a makeover. He's got a nice alt mode, great robot mode. And then there's Towline. This was an interesting character. He seemed like an okay character at first, but his gimmick with the great big alt mode and sort of like a G1 Ratchet, G1 Ironhide type of gimmick, I thought this was a pretty interesting character. He could use a redo. Next we have Sharktikon. I think I did have this figure. Again, one of those odd characters I picked up when I was rebuilding my Transformers collection. I thought this was a great figure, and I think this one deserves a redo. I mean, look at this alt mode. It's just fantastic. Then Slugslinger. Wow, another one of those really interesting characters and figures for Energon. Double cockpit alt mode. I mean, this should be amazing if they did a redo on this one. And then Stormjet. Yeah, I think we've seen this one in as repacked as Superion, but the original version, that was pretty interesting. I think Hasbro can do something like a redo on Stormjet. Finally, for the deluxe is Barricade. One of my favorite molds, I think, from the Energon line is this one. He was remolded into Scattershot, and I think Bruticus or Onslaught or something like that. I thought this was great. Barricade. I think he deserves another redo from Hasbro. Okay, so that's deluxes. Let's move on to my suggestions for the Voyager class figures. Starting things off with Ironhide. This figure was great back in the day. It was beefy, chunky, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful figure to redo if ever they do Energon in the Generations line. And then we have Mirage. This is apparently the Mirage for Energon. Could have been something else. Could have been, I don't know, could have been Slipstream or something like that. Maybe they can rename it, but I thought this mold was pretty interesting. And then we have Cliffjumper, another interesting character from Energon, something I never had. This was an amazing, amazing mold. I mean, it looked great. It was beefy, bulky, just like Ironhide, but sadly, I never had it. And finally, for Voyager, we have Shock Blast. Obviously, this is Shockwave from Energon, and this was so cool, I think. Sure, he's kind of corny, the colors and all that, but I'm sure Hasbro can put a spin on this. And look at this, satellite mode, tank mode, and robot with a big gun. This is going to be a winner if they redo it. Okay, so that's it for Voyager. Let's move on with the leader class suggestions for Energon. We have Scorponok. Of course, we need Energon Scorponok. And, you know, for those of you who had this figure, I never had this. I wanted it so badly. I could never find it. It looks so cool. If they're planning on doing this one for the Energon line, they should conversely do something for the Generation Selects, a repaint, a redeco of the Mega Zarak or Black Zarak version of this figure. That would be completely awesome. Next up is Landmine. I remember having this figure. One of my first Energon figures. It was pretty cool. I thought the transformation was great. I thought this was like the Ripley arms for aliens. I thought that was great. The combination mode was amazing. This could definitely do a redo in the leader class. Finally, Bulkhead. Great alt mode. I remember, actually, I think I had this figure as well. Just not sure if it was the green color or another color. But that alt mode, spectacular attack chopper. Robot mode looks great. You got the Gerwalk mode and combined mode with another, with this base. I thought this is a great figure. I mean, Energon had its fill of wonderful figures and a lot of crappy figures. So we'll give it that. But if Hasbro decides a makeover, oh my god, they should put Bulkhead as one of the figures. Leader class. Nothing short of leader class, because Bulkhead's big, obviously. And finally, for Commander class, my suggestion, obviously, Megatron. This would be a great, big, huge figure. Commander class, and I guess they could do obviously a Generation Selects version of this mold. If they do decide to redo it, they could get Galvatron, of course, as a Selects figure, or maybe another Commander class. This was a great mold back in the day, and again, a figure I never got. I wanted one. And finally, of course, we're gonna need, as for Commander class, definitely the Energon Optimus Prime. Back in the day, it was kind of corny with the combination mode and all that, but I thought the truck mode was pretty cool. Robot mode was interesting. And I think this one deserves a makeover, like a generation-styled version with better proportions, better combination design, and that truck mode. Man, I thought this was a particularly good figure for the Energon line. It just had so many flaws that a lot of collectors weren't really into it. And I actually wanted this to the point that I bought a KO version just so I could have one on the shelf, but then that thing fell apart because it was a KO. So there you have it, folks. Those are my predictions and suggestions. Should Hasbro and Takara Tomy do a redo of the Energon line for their new trilogy? Let me know in the comments what you think of my list. Did all your favorites make it to my list, or did you have some particular figures that you want included in an Energon line? Should Hasbro and Takara Tomy decide to redo this line? Hit me up in the comments, and as always, hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of my latest video reviews. If it's your first time here, please subscribe. And if you want to help the channel out, please check out my Patreon account. There's a link in the description box below. Thanks for watching.